Imagine you're standing at the mouth of a cave 200,000 years ago, and the sun has just dropped below the horizon. There is no moon tonight, there is no fire yet. Either someone is still coaxing a spark from dry grass, and until they succeed, you are, for all practical purposes, blind. Your ears become your only reliable sense. Somewhere out there, something with better night vision than you is deciding whether you're worth the risk. Your heart is pounding, your palms are sweating, and every part of you is screaming one simple message: get away from the open, get close to the group, get near the light. That feeling, the tightening in your chest, the second darkness swallows the world, isn't a personality flaw. It isn't something you were supposed to grow out of by age 7. It is one of the oldest, most carefully engineered alarm systems your body owns. We call it nyctophobia today, and we tend to talk about it like it's a childish glitch, something a nightlight should fix. But it isn't a glitch at all. It's a feature. It's a survival tool that took hundreds of thousands of years to build, tested, and refined generation after generation by the simple, brutal fact that the humans who times weren't times afraid of the dark didn't live long enough to pass that trait on. The animal we actually are. Here's the uncomfortable truth about our species. We are not built for nighttime combat. We don't have claws, we're not particularly fast, our eyesight in low light is mediocre at best compared to almost every predator that ever hunted us. Lions, leopards, hyenas, saber-toothed cats, all of them evolved eyes with a reflective layer behind the retina that lets them see in a fraction of the light we need. For roughly the first 190,000 years of Homo sapiens' existence, when the sun went down, we became, in the truest sense, prey. Slow meat, clumsy meat, meat that couldn't see you coming. So, evolutionary psychologists argue that fear of the dark isn't really fear of darkness itself, it's fear of what darkness times hides. Daylight lets you spot a threat from a distance and react. Night erases that advantage entirely, and your brain knows it. That's why the fear response kicks in with such force. It isn't waiting for proof that something dangerous is nearby, because in an environment where visibility is gone, waiting for proof could mean waiting until it's too late. This is sometimes called a better safe than sorry strategy, and it means your ancestors' brains were built to treat darkness itself as a threat, whether or not anything was actually out there. Your amygdala, the almond-shaped alarm bell buried in your brain, still runs this exact same program. The rational, modern part of your mind might know there's nothing under the bed, but that ancient circuitry doesn't care what year it is. It was shaped over roughly 1 million years of nights where the wrong assumption got you killed. And it has no intention of updating its settings just because you now own a deadbolt, the animal that stopped fearing us. Here's where the story gets remarkable, though, because our ancestors didn't just cower from the dark. They fought back against it, and they won so decisively that they permanently rewired the behavior of the most dangerous predators on the planet. The weapon was fire. Humans gained some control over fire somewhere between 1 and 2 million years ago, but it was roughly 400,000 years ago that we started using it consistently, and that changed everything. Fire is one of the only things on Earth that triggers an almost universal fear response across land animals, a fear so deep that even predators raised in captivity, who've never once seen a flame, will instinctively avoid the smell of smoke. When early humans built a fire and kept it burning through the night, they weren't just warming their hands. They were broadcasting a message into the darkness. Something here controls the one force every animal is programmed to flee. And predators listened. Over thousands of generations, the individual lions, wolves, and big cats, bold enough to test a human camp, were the ones who ended up dead, while the cautious ones who kept their distance survived to pass on their caution. That single behavioral shift echoed all the way down to today. Mountain lions have been recorded abandoning a fresh kill and fleeing the instant they hear a human voice. We didn't just learn to survive the dark. We became the reason something else learned to fear it. But fire solved the predator problem. It didn't solve the psychological one. A fire burning at the edge of camp doesn't stop your mind from racing once everyone goes quiet. So our ancestors built something else, something social, ritualized, and deeply human to manage the terror that fire alone couldn't reach. The ritual of the firelit circle. Anthropologists who study modern hunter-gatherer societies, communities like the Jew, Hoansi Bushmen of the Kalahari, have found something fascinating about how these groups use their nights and researchers believe it mirrors patterns stretching back tens of thousands of years. During the day, conversation among the Jew, Hoansi, is mostly practical, economic planning, complaints, gossip that regulates who did what to whom. But the moment the sun sets and a group gathers around the fire, the entire tone of conversation shifts. Daytime tension gets set aside. What takes over instead is singing, dancing, and storytelling. And researchers found these activities can make up over 80% of what happens at the fire after dark. This wasn't idle entertainment, it was, in a very real sense, ritualized fear management. Stories told around the fire in foraging societies tend to center on ancestors, distant relatives, myths, and moral lessons about cooperation, the kind of material that binds a scattered, anxious group into a single, unified tribe right when everyone is most vulnerable and most afraid. One researcher who has spent decades studying these firelit gatherings put it simply: stories and gifs were the original social media, the technology that held prehistoric communities together once the light disappeared and rational planning gave way to something more emotional. There's a reason this happened specifically at night and not during the day. Daylight hours were needed for foraging and hunting. There was no time to waste on song and myth when there was food to find. But night created a strange gift: hours of enforced stillness when nothing productive could be done anyway, and the only real choice was how to spend the fear. So instead of sitting in silence and letting imagination run wild, tribes turned toward each other. They turned outward panic into shared performance. Singing and dancing around the fire doesn't just pass the time, it synchronizes people, calms the nervous system through rhythm and shared movement, and in many recorded cultures, tips participants into altered states of consciousness that anthropologists believe helped communities process grief, fear, and the unknown together, rather than alone. Some hunter-gatherer cultures went even further, drawing an explicit line between day and night as separate worlds entirely. The Ainu people of Japan have a saying passed through generations: the daytime belongs to human activity, and the night belongs to spirits. That's not a throwaway superstition, it's a coping framework. If the terrifying, unseen world beyond the firelight has its own rules, its own name, its own place in the story, then it becomes something you can respect and prepare for, rather than an incomprehensible void that swallows meaning entirely. Number, the buddy system that never ended. Underneath all of this, the fire, the songs, the myths, sat the oldest and most reliable defense of all: nobody slept alone. In every hunter-gatherer society ever studied, sleep was a group activity. Infants and children stayed in constant physical contact with an adult through the night. Family units clustered tight around shared hearths. This wasn't comfort for comfort's sake, it was structural. A lone sleeper is a lone target. A cluster of bodies is a wall of eyes, ears, and reaction time that no single predator wants to test. And your own sleep still carries the fingerprint of this arrangement. Human sleep evolved what some researchers call a sentinel function, meaning your brain never fully checks out, even in rest. During lighter stages of sleep, your brain keeps monitoring the environment, filtering unfamiliar sounds, ready to snap you fully awake at the first sign that something is wrong. You were never designed to sleep like a creature with nothing to fear. You were designed to sleep like a creature on watch because for most of human history, that's exactly what you were. This is also, some researchers argue, why so many people today feel a specific, nameless unease when they're alone in a dark house, not because anything is actually there, but because your nervous system is running software built for a world where solitary sleep in darkness was, statistically, an enormous gamble. The fear doesn't need a monster to justify itself. It only needs the absence of the group that used to keep you alive. What we traded away. We live now behind locked doors, under streetlights, with alarm systems standing in for a shared hearth, and phones standing in for a circle of firelit faces. In one sense, we've never been safer from the dark. But we've also dismantled almost every social structure our species spent 1 million years building to actually manage the fear itself. Ancient humans didn't get rid of their terror of the unseen, they never could have. And honestly, they didn't need to. They built an entire architecture of songs, stories, shared fires, and shared sleep around that fear instead, turning a private, paralyzing panic into a nightly ritual that bonded the whole tribe together. So, the next time you feel that flicker of unease walking through a dark room, or find yourself instinctively wanting company after the sun goes down, understand what's actually happening. That isn't weakness. That's roughly 1 million years of evolutionary engineering, still faithfully running in the background, still trying to gather you back around a fire that, for most of human history, was the only thing standing between your ancestors and the dark. If you want more hidden history about the instincts still wired into your brain, hit subscribe and turn on notifications. We're uncovering the survival engineering of our ancestors every week. Don't let the fire go out. We'll see you in the next one.